everybody. It is Saturday, May 30th, and we have survived the first week of phase 2. And let's get this started. I want to introduce our host and producer, Christine Cano. Woo!
Thank you so much. It is a typical Saturday. No idea what this music is. It's supposed to be Tejana music. Anyway, we're going to turn that off. Alexa, stop.
Sounds insanely chill.
Alexa, stop. Welcome everyone to Coffee and Pandusa. I'm Christian Cano. Today is May 30th. My goodness gracious, we're ending already. Gosh, just one more day in May and we've got June starting. Welcome for those who are watching us on Facebook Live, but also those who watch us later on YouTube and also on Facebook as well. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts. Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, also other co-host. Mama Ruth is not able to join us today. It looks like she is under the weather again on a Saturday morning. And our other co-host, Jeff Scott, is on hiatus, I believe, until the middle of June. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. Today is the sun has finally come up here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have had so much rain. And as we normally do on Coffee and Pandusa, we're going to go around the virtual screen since we're doing virtual until phase 2 gets more settled. Introduce yourself, introduce your button, if you imaginary button, if you have one. So I have to pull up my Facebook. So I believe the person next is Jenny, Maurice, Shamaiye, and then Maya. So please go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. I am a board member of the National Organization of Women. And then, of course, Charlotte Pride. And then for moms demand action and guns, most important, most glaringly, Medicare for all. Obviously, we need it. There's not even a question anymore.
Excellent. Shamaiye?
My name is Shamaiye Haynes, and I'm a community organizer here in Charlotte. It started off around education on the West Side, but it's expanding out to other things. Of course, when you care about your community, you care about all things community, which is housing, education, healthcare, all of the buttons that affect people. So I'm really happy to be on this show, and thank you for having me.
Maurice?
Unmute Maurice.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's see, here we go. Well, I apologize, Maurice. I'm having the hardest time with you, technical issues with you. I'm trying to unmute you here. And there we go. All right.
Yay.
No worries. So again, I am Maurice Falls. I am a Charlotte native, and I am a board member of Project Move Forward. We advocate for people with disabilities, and just love my community.
Excellent. Well, thank you, sir. Welcome. And let's go with our young activist and a college graduate. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Maya Wells. I am a human rights and peace activist. And the more you're involved in our community, the more you care about people you don't know. And so last night, I somehow, someway managed to, I just can hear myself. That's okay. I went to last night's protest, which was definitely interesting. I went there for peaceful reasons, but it was definitely interesting to know the violent aspect of it. But anyways, yeah, and I just graduated from UC Charlotte, political science major, econ minor. I plan on getting a higher education, but now I'm just doing my best friend.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you, Maya. And I don't know if that's you that I'm getting some feedback from, or if that's just me that's hearing that. So I apologize, just to let you know that I'm getting just a little feedback. But
yeah,
okay, I apologize for that. Usually I blame it on Jenny, but Jenny's saving me today, so I apologize, Jenny. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts for Coffee and Pandusa. every Wednesday and Saturday. This is our days until our co-hosts feel comfortable with meeting back together again with our wonderful new masks that we'll be wearing, our face coverings. And so my buttons are Trust Women, of course, Medicare for All, the purple ribbon for essential workers, especially city workers here in Charlotte. I guess that's what I've got. So listen, we're going to talk about a very serious topic today. And the original topic, name of the show was going to be originally, who are the freedom fighters and who are the you're not the boss of me people. That was actually the original name of the show when we first did the topic for this show. But of course, a lot has happened over the last week and especially over the last couple of days. And the president of the United States tweeted Thursday, I think it was Thursday morning or just a couple of mornings ago about the thugs. He used the term thugs once again. And I thought, you know, I started thinking about it and I don't remember the president, our current president, using that same term when other people are protesting. He seems to only use that term with specific groups of protesters. So that's why we changed the name to thugs, because I don't like that term thugs, because I know how it is sometimes used towards a specific group of individuals. But he used that, and so I apologize to anyone who maybe finds that offensive, but that was the reason that we named it that way. But before I do that, and before Jenny tells me, we need to host a coffee and pan dulce. If you do have coffee this morning, salute to all of our neighbors who are drinking coffee. And I'm actually drinking coffee today. And we also want to thank our pan dulce sponsor, Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue. It is a small business. This is a frozen Mexican pan dulce concha. It's been frozen for a month now because I like the colors. And Manolo's Bakery is on Central Avenue. It is a small business, immigrant owned. Please visit and shop at small businesses, locally owned businesses around Charlotte to help them during this global pandemic. So let's go around and, you know, I don't really even know how to kind of start this conversation other than to say that we're going through another situation in the United States where we're having this, Jenny, help me out here because I've got so many things I want to say, but I don't want to say the wrong things. So go ahead.
And everybody, you know, especially if you're not an American like me, you know, I wouldn't be careful on what I say. I haven't said a lot about it on Facebook because, you know, it's one of those things where, I mean, we can start with the city of Minneapolis and the numerous errors of the case. You know, the fact that this officer was even in employment with them after over a dozen complaints in investigation. So this guy is not this, and I'm not going to even give him a this police officer. If you, he's honestly, the word thug applies more to him than it does to Floyd. You know, Floyd, it was a very minor offense that he was being arrested for. They already had him on the ground, and just from my martial arts background, there was no what they did. There was no attainable reason. You had 4 police officers around him. There is no pressure on his neck. There is no, even if he was resisting, you don't do that. There's different ways of subduing. He was already handcuffed. He was already face first on the ground. This was absolutely done out of cruelty. There was no, the video and the photographs all show it. They showed that he didn't resist. It was a non-violent arrest, or as he wasn't doing a violent crime. He wasn't in a store flipping over. So he was no immediate threat to the police officer. The time that you can start using lethal force is that if you are threatened, like he was armed, he was a gun, he or had a physical threat to civilians around there, and that anyway. So for him to have done that after he, obviously the intention was to hurt Floyd. and very thuggy behavior. President before when he referred to new arrivals as drug dealers and murderers. This isn't the first he referred to the federal judge as that Mexican judge. You know, he's little people of color, and so this is a pattern, and this kind of stuff has to stop. You know, and especially, you know, white people need to hold other white people accountable, and we need to call out because, you know, the message is not going to be driven home by letting African Americans, Latinx Americans do this on their own.
Yeah.
And white people, I'm embarrassed being white and seeing what peers have done. And so I apologize. There's no other way.
Well, no, I thank you for Jenny for coming in there. Does anybody else want to kind of?
I have something to add to this conversation that is really, really kind of crazy to me. So I have found out that Mr. Floyd and his murderer actually knew each other. They were co-workers together. And I think that's what's more shocking to me. Typically when these encounters take place, it's usually a stranger versus a stranger. They had worked at a nightclub for a number of years together. Mr. Floyd as security guard and the murderer as police officer at a nightclub. And what that tells me is this was probably, they may have had some other encounter that sparked all of this, which is even worse almost than two strangers having some sort of issue with each other and something ensuing. It sort of almost sounds less like he should have been charged with manslaughter and more about it may have actually been premeditated.
Interesting. Who else wants to jump in here?
I'll go. Yeah. Okay. All I can say is I can have, and I'm thankful to say that I can have as many Black, Brown, Latino, Asian, LGBTQ friends. But even with that in mind, I will never know what it's like to be them in America. And just because I'm friends with them shouldn't mean that I'm entitled to knowing what it's like. Because I've never been brutalized by the police. I don't feel fearful every single day because of my skin color. And it's 2020, and it's so incredibly disheartening to know that we still have to, people who are marginalized by this issue alone still have to be fearful of this simply for being who they are. And I hope my generation can change that.
Maurice, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. And you know, this situation brings up a lot of feelings for any American, but especially Black Americans. And you know, the last time in Charlotte when Keith Moscott was shot, I wasn't home. I was living in Houston at the time, so felt very powerless. And I think that this situation brings those feelings up again. So I simply remind myself that all I have control over is myself and my choices. But I liked to piggyback off of something that Jenny was saying, that, you know, white people need to hold themselves accountable and hold other people accountable. Because, and I'll share a perspective from my own life. Like, I don't know what it's like to be white, but I had a really good friend in college. We were all sitting around. He was white, and then there are three of us total. And we were watching TV, and this commercial for American Idol came on, and it was William Hung, the She Bangs guy. And then my friend said, "Oh, look at that chink on the TV." And if you're not aware, but that is a racial slur towards Asian people. And I was taken aback, and, you know, I started to press him on, well, why would you say that? Did you realize it was wrong? And we had a really, in-depth conversation. It was very heated. And, I tried talking with him for a while, but eventually it ruptured our relationship in a way that we just were never able to be friends again. And I don't think he's a bad person for that, but I think that is really what many white people need to wrestle with, is the fact that standing up against racism will cost you, and it needs to cost you these relationships, because racism, when, through slavery and segregation and Jim Crow, there was a forced conduct. There were consequences for dating outside your race. There was consequences for drinking in a whites only fountain. And so those social norms were created. So anti-racists have to do the same thing. You need to be willing to divorce yourself from people that are being racist and call it out. It's not enough to sit calmly with your parents or your friends or your husband or wife and know that they are having racist views and not challenge them. And that is the deal that many Americans have made and this country has made since our founding. And unfortunately, that lie of, all men are created equal while we are enslaving other human beings is something that has been fed. And, we're still dealing with that illusion. And until white people, and again, that's just the reality, until white people are willing to break free of that matrix reality and say, it's horrible, there's shit out here that we need to clean up, we're gonna continue to be in this mess.
We whitewashed history, slavery not had, we used, the purging of all the nations were here, and that was okay, that it was just poison Indians, and we've taken all these horrific, murderous events that are did and continue to do and make excuses for it. Whether they're Latin, whether they're no matter which category you pick, we have taken them and reduced them down to birth. We've murdered, and we have to. We can't say that was 5 generations. My problem. No, because it still have generational hurt today. Yeah. Obviously, still those divides today in economic, socioeconomic, and just random police where you see Africans get stopped more, questioned more, harassed more. I've got a good friends. They are a gay couple back in West Texas. One is black and one. And if Justin is driving, I'm blanking on his partner's name. If they swap cars, it's amazing how Justin, the African American partner, gets stopped more. Now, if his fiance is driving, they don't harass him. But if Justin's driving, they ask him all kinds of questions. Where are you going? And I've been with them when this has happened.
Jen, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, Jenny, I mean, exactly. And Maurice, what you said was something that I think we all need to say, we all need to hear. And I have been trying to, since the 2018 event and moving forward, I've tried to be as engaged as I can with our marginalized neighbors, because as a person who sometimes I maybe fall in a group, I've tried to see how I can help others when they're being marginalized. So I guess, what can we do, those of us who want to help change things? And with what you've said, is call out racism, disassociate ourselves with people, or those kind of things. I almost feel helpless, because I feel like I want to help, but other than say this is bad and this is terrible, and going and doing some peaceful marches or whatever is necessary, what else can we do? I mean, it seems like we have these conversations too many times. Yes,
Christian, I'm actually really glad that you asked the question and you framed it in the way that you framed it. I have been wrestling with the same question as a member of the African American community, as an organizer in the community, and as a doer in this community. I think part of what we struggle with as a society and being Americans is we don't have our own personal armies who can stop the police physically, who can lend money, who can support financially on a broad scale. And so to me, sometimes I think the demand of what we want from people it can be a little overwhelming in terms of, because when I hear that question asked, I sort of think of you and some other people trying to make a difference where it counts, but really just being so incredibly desperate to end it. Like, how do we just end it? But I think there are very practical ways that people can support. One, continue to do what you do, which is show up. There's a lot of power in numbers, and sometimes we've been in things together, Maurice, you and I, Christian, Jenny, where there's like 3 or 4, we may be the only people who show up. But guess what? There's power in that, because maybe the next time 8 of us show up, next time 12 of us show up. I think we as organizers really need to create a platform to where we are a unified voice. It's not enough for us to be fighting all of these different causes, but never have a place of coming back to where, we need to unite. And I think we saw that played out as to what happened on Beatty's Ford last night. Number one, I didn't go because I wasn't comfortable in the fact that I didn't know who was organizing, what was going on, and I still to this day, 24 hours later, don't know. If we had a unified voice that doesn't necessarily promote on social media, but we could call each other and we could do that old-fashioned organizing to say, this is what our protest looks like. This is what we're protesting for. We're going to put down our education causes, our housing causes, our LGBTQ causes, our white women causes, our causes. Today, this is what we're going to focus on. Tomorrow, it may be LGBTQ. Tomorrow, it may be white women. But today, it's going to focus on the preservation of Black lives. It's going to focus on the preservation of stopping the violence. And we're going to be peaceful organizers. Because part of what we run into is some of us have, I know probably at least 100 people who went out on Beatty's Ford Road, but they're on the news now. They're getting arrested because somebody else decided to do something, but it was not as reputable in terms of the organizers. I don't know that, so I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is we need to organize and have a more unified voice around all of our necessary concerns and needs, and be disciplined enough to say, let's fight this today. Let's fight that tomorrow. Let's prioritize what it is we're going to do. And I didn't plan to come here and talk up everybody's time, because y'all know I love a good talk. But, so that's what I wanted to add to that conversation.
Well, and Christian, if I can piggyback off of that too, because what I was hearing from you and what I feel again is the world at large. If you look at the enormity of a problem, it can make you just stand still and say, there is nothing that I can do. But building relationships, and so that's really what I've been doing. You know, I've been very silent and not done a lot of posts, but it's the relationship that you build with another human being that can make the difference. Because, you know, I think about like our workplaces and schools. We talk about inclusion and diversity a lot in those places, but then how does your life reflect that? And to me, the reality is most of our lives can be extremely segregated, especially and more so for white people, because, you know, you live in a neighborhood, you have work, you know, there's privilege that keeps you separated. People of color, we have to, for our works and our workplaces and jobs, you know, you want to live in America, you're going to have to interact with white people, but it may not be the same for white. So if you live in a place like Charlotte that is diverse and your friend group and the people around you and your professional colleagues are only white, to me, that's a lack of intention. It's a lack of openness. It's a lack of, you know, saying, well, I'm just going to be blind to the world and not reach out and grow. And so I have taken the tactic for me, you know, right now, again, I don't have the power to end racism. And again, that's not my problem. I'm not racist. I don't have racist friends. And if I see it, I call it out. But if you are a white person, like that is your job. You know, you say, okay, well, how do I end racism? Well, becoming less racist. If you don't have people in your life that share stories about their, like, again, if you have Black people in your life and they're not telling you about the racist incidents that have happened to you or happened to happened to themselves or happened to their loved ones, they don't trust you. You have not built that bond with them. And that's really what people need to start doing more of, is giving others their humanity. Because I am empathetic with everyone. And I'll share the story again with other people. The first time I realized my skin color would cause me to be judged, I was 7 years old. I was in the first grade, and there was this girl that I really liked. And I said, hey, you know, will you be my girlfriend? And she said no. And I asked her, I said, well, why? And she said, because you're Black and I'm white. We're talking about a 6-year-old telling a 7-year-old that she can't be his girlfriend because she's white and he's Black. We would all say that that's racist. Now, this young lady and I, we continue to go through elementary school together, high school together. She would consider herself to be my friend. She probably wouldn't consider herself to be racist. And when we talked and connected, you know, when we were in our 20s after college, I mentioned that to her and she's like, oh, I don't even remember that. And that, to me, that is what racism is. It is embedded in the reality and taught to children, and you grow up with these feelings of, oh, well, I'm not going to date Black people. That's just my preference, you know? Or, you know, that guy, he's not quite right for the job. I just don't get a good feeling about him. It becomes background noise in your subconscious, but it's there. It is racism. And so that's why I can give empathy to white people, because I recognize tearing that down would be emotionally hard, because it means you have to look at the people around you completely differently. You have to look at yourself differently. But if you want this country to be better, if you want there to be less riots and looting or whatever you would like to say, then you need to be a part of making that change and doing the work. And that comes with intention.
I 1000% agree, Maurice. You know, one of the things you made a really important point is that if you live in what I call a segregated neighborhood, like I live in a neighborhood, you know, south of Charlotte, is 100% white. So when I leave this neighborhood and I go out into the world, I need to be very intentional on who I'm around, the company I keep, which the majority of my friends are in the LGBT community, in the activist community. I'm friends with Maurice. I've never met Maya in person, but I consider her a friend too. And I know Maya in person, and we've stood side by side. And Maurice made a dramatic impact on my life and has opened doors up for me as a new arrival here in Charlotte, and it's been very intentional in our friendship. And I think it's the intentions. We have to push past our comfort zone. We have to let that residual racism in the back of our head that our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents instilled in us and say, cross that divide. And so it's really go into those spaces, no matter what. I could be higher Latin room, and that's okay. I need to experience that, because the reverse is where Maurice, you've probably been the only man in the room several times, in political settings and activist settings. Just as I'm a lot of times the only trans person in the room that I know of. It's an awkward feeling, but you get used to it after a while. And at some point you go, I need to go in their spaces. I need to hear their stories. All stories matter. Our stories matter. And internalize what's going on in their communities. You can't know the Latinx community if you go to any of the events, any of the activism, social events, whatever it is.
Jenny, I'm going to interrupt you just a second, only because I know we started late, but Councilperson Matt Newton is going to be dialing in about 5 minutes. He wanted to make some comments, and also about a very important vote that's going to be happening on Monday night at our Charlotte City Council. I did want to say that for about 2 years, I have said, since I have tried to, and I've said this before, I never felt Latinx until I moved to Charlotte. I know it's not unique about Charlotte and North Carolina, but I everywhere else I've lived, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Texas, it's when I came here, people basically said, where are you from? And I said, Texas. No, where are you from? I said, Texas. That was the first time I really started to feel, oh, they mean like, am I an American? I mean, that's really what they were trying to say. And that's when I made a decision to start to really educate myself on the people that have fought to move Charlotte forward or North Carolina forward. And there's a lot of shoulders that we all stand on. And one of the things that I heard from someone at one time was that when someone's foot is on your neck, you just want to get that foot off your neck. And I've said that a couple of times. And then this happened where the officer's knee was on this person's neck and killed the person. And I thought about that for a while. And I thought, I understand why there are people that are upset and that are, I don't want to use the word rioting, protesting and that kind of stuff, because when I can imagine when someone's foot is on your neck for a long time, you just want to get the foot off your neck and you're just tired of it. And so I don't know. And that's one of the things that really upset me about many things upset me about President Trump. But one of the things and one of the reasons we titled this was because when all of the reopened people were protesting about, you're not the boss of me, and they had guns and we had pictures of them yelling at police, and there wasn't the same response from law enforcement that there is when other people are protesting. And he used the word thugs for people of color when we protest or we are trying to speak out. But yet when other groups of individuals are protesting, he doesn't use that term. Does anybody, I mean, I may be speaking to the choir, but does anybody see that hypocrisy? And
yeah, Christian, you need to specify the kind of groups you can say it's okay. Like when Yeah, like he only does this when it comes to poor Black, brown, LGBTQ
Yes.
undocumented individuals. Whereas, Michigan, whatever happened in Michigan's the governor of Michigan, in that building, when all those white people with all those guns came in and yelled at those officers, and we all saw that viral picture. And they're still in one piece, and yet compare that to kneeling when Kaepernick kneeled, and what happened yesterday, what happened. Yeah, unfortunately, this is just another Saturday.
Yeah.
And also, all I can say in regards to what we've been discussing from this point on is teamwork really makes the dream work.
Well, and again, I will take this back to that the idea of all men were created equal. And what that meant at the beginning was white men, white privileged men. And so what we have in our country is there are people that are seen as completely human, regardless of whatever they do or regardless of however violent they are, and then people are not. And so that is a through line through slavery, through Jim Crow, through even today, a white man can tie up his wife, kill her, kill children, and then he was troubled. There is a humanization of people and an empathy that is provided to white men, especially, regardless of how they behave. And the violence, the threat of violence, because let's get back to what was really happening when we're talking about those protests. They were armed to the teeth. It was intimidation. There was not violence, but it was a threat of violence. That has continually been a through line within this country. White men, white people with power have been able to use it to threaten Black people. And you saw it with Amy Cooper. People, and this is one thing about people that say I don't see color, yada yada yada, where you try to deny the reality of race that we live in. You don't, it. We all know that Black people, brown people are mistreated in this country, and she knew how to weaponize her power as a white woman and say, well, I'm going to threaten a call and say specifically that an African American man is threatening my life. She knows that. We all know it. And so this illusion, it's tiring for people of color to consistently have to talk to conservatives and other people that are telling us lies that they know to be untrue. I mean, we need to talk in reality. And unfortunately, because we're Black, we're always dismissed, and it has to be from white people and the people that have the privilege to say that.
But you look at historical context, like one of the things that gets admired in this country is the Boston Tea Party, which was a riot. I mean, they burned down 7 ships in that harbor, threw away millions of dollars worth of merchandise from the British, and it's a political movement based on the Boston Tea Party. It's just admired. We've dehumanized people of color in every way possible, and we've introduced what white people do. And you see those terrorists standing there in the middle of the Capitol, face to face with law enforcement, with armed to the teeth, and not one arrest, not one pepper spray, nothing was done. And the moment that there was a peaceful protest in Minneapolis, they broke out the pepper spray and the shot grenades, and I mean they went in with the intention of busting it up. And they happened just a couple weeks apart. It's a huge difference.
Yeah, and I would like to add with that, Jenny, the white protesters were breaking the law. They were breaking the law. Yes. I mean, just the hypocrisy of this. I mean, they should have all been put in jail, but they weren't. And that is consistent, that laws, rights are not equally applied for Black people, brown people in this country.
You're 100% right. And there's no other way of looking at it. And until we start, as a white person, I have to call it out every time I see it, every time that it's around me. It's one of the reasons that I'm very intentional about. I look at people's Facebook page before I add them. I scroll through. If I see a rebel flag, if I see a Trump flag, if I see anything like that, I'm not going to add them. I don't allow them. If I see that pop up after I've added them, I delete them. I deleted 3 trans people in the last 2 weeks that either had an anti-immigrant stuff on their page or had pro-Trump stuff or racist stuff, because I'm like, I don't care how good of a activist they are bigoted.
Yeah. Jenny, question, and this is a question, and then a councilperson, Matt Newton, has joined us, and I know he wants to say some things about Monday's night meeting. Tell me what you think about this. I mean, I'm all about peaceful protest and that, but I also understand you need to approach it from all different avenues. As a sports fan, you need different plays. You need to do different things, and I really think that we need to have these marches or protests or awareness efforts in South Charlotte, up and down Colony Road, down Providence Road, down 51. We need to be around South Park. We need to be around these areas where people see that first of all, the unity of the people that believe this is unacceptable, but also it needs to be put into they need to see it. And which is why I was so impressed by the mayor of Chicago that made a statement on Thursday. I'm not sure if anybody is aware of the statement she made. And she basically said what we all say internally. Everyone who supports President Trump always says, oh, I love President Trump because he says what he says. And then when someone else doesn't say it, oh, they're being rude. Well, it was wonderful for her to just basically say what we were saying, and that Trump, F you. I mean, that's really what I felt.
Well, and you know, to expand on that, because I think Christian's thing froze, I think we do have to disrupt white areas. We have to put it in my peers' faces. It's easy to dismiss it if it's on a predominantly minority part of the town, you know, and it's them over there, it's those people. It's that dehumanizing thing that you put somebody in a box so you can dismiss them. And you're exactly right, Christian and Maurice, is that we need to run up and down South Park Mall and just have a whole crowd of people on, you know, going circling that whole complex and just disrupting that deal peacefully, you know, because I am a pacifist. I don't believe in violence, but and it needs to be visibly tons of white activists, especially saying we're tired of this. It has to get to the point where white people have to do the right fucking thing and stand up against this and say, we're tired of this, and talk to our representatives in the halls of Congresses and say, we're done. This shit's got to stop. And it's especially the white old lady voters. They got to get out there and just say, we're done. And white people have to end this. It is not incumbent upon people of color to end this. They can protest, they can do, but white people have to be proactive in the halls of Congress. They have to be calling the mayors, the governors, and national Congress and saying, enough is enough is enough, and really get involved.
Well, listen, y'all, I'm so sorry. I'm having very, very bad Saturday morning technical issues here. And we do have, go ahead, Jay.
Is Matt Newton on? Matt, are you
Oh,
there?
I was on mute. Sorry about that. Hi,
no worries.
everyone.
I wanted to pop you in real quick. If you could say in about 3 or 4 minutes what's happening on Monday.
I'll try. Yeah, I think we're having a really important conversation about race and policing in our country. I would agree with all of the comments that everyone has mentioned thus far, and I agree too. I think the protest should be taken to where the institutions of power lie within our country, and that is, you know.
I think we just lost Matt. Well, when he comes back on, it's about the airport, and there's a city council vote on Monday about the benefits, healthcare benefits for the airport, certain airport employees. I believe it's for the vendors. I was on a call last night about it, and what the Charlotte city government is being involved with. But when he gets,
I'm back. I'm back. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm on my phone and someone called in and it kicked me off here. So I need to figure out how to cut that feature or that function on my phone off. But yeah, so I would agree with all the comments before. I think we need to disrupt the systemic, the institutions of systemic oppression, and that's how you do it, right? You go to where the power lies. Now, and I don't want to disrupt from this important national dialogue that we're having. At the same time, we're still, in the midst of the coronavirus event crisis, and I think we can all acknowledge just how important healthcare and the ability, the access to healthcare is, particularly for our working class citizens. And so that is, I think, the crux or the underpinning of the issue that is going to be presented to council, so the city council on Monday night. There is a large corporate entity at the airport. They work the concessions and food and beverage areas. They are called HMS Host. And they have well over 1,000, I think somewhere in the ballpark, about 1,200 employees that work for them at the airport. Now, times are tough over there. The foot traffic is down by about 90%. And in all of the companies that work at the airport are struggling. Hertz actually is going out of business. There are a number of others that are facing bankruptcy. HMS Host, though, isn't. They are a they are a international company, and at the same time, they're a subsidiary of a multinational company, a multi-billion-dollar company. Now they are asking, they're not entitled to this, but they're asking the airport, and the city council has to approve this before it can be allowed, but they're asking the airport to give them concessions, breaks on the contract that they're currently under with the airport. And in many respects, that's not a bad idea. It's good to help them stay in business, to keep jobs right at the airport. But at the same time, the same company that's asking for these concessions and these breaks is going to be kicking over 700 of their employees off their health insurance. And I've really been asking the critical question, why are we considering these breaks if they are not going to meet us at least halfway and ensure that their employees maintain and keep their health insurance in the middle of a public health crisis? So that is the real underpinning of the issue that we'll be considering on Monday. I think it's important, and it's completely within our prerogative to require the company to provide that health insurance. The breaks that we're talking about providing them exceed, potentially triple the benefits they will receive by the so triple the cost of that healthcare insurance. Now, what this company is saying is that if we were to force them or require them to provide that healthcare insurance, they won't take the breaks. And if they feel like, that meets their business model and they can still survive, I think that speaks volumes, doesn't it? But I do feel like we have a duty, and it's incumbent upon us when the opportunity presents itself to take care of the middle class, the working class folks within our community. And that's what this is about, ensuring that a company is a good social partner of ours here in our community. And so I'll leave it at that, unless there are any questions.
Yeah, Councilperson Newton, thank you. And I apologize, Maya, go ahead.
Yeah, Councilperson Newton, I'm Maya Wells. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Hi.
What are your thoughts on UBI?
UBI. So I don't know, but I'm not familiar with that. What do you mean? Can you give me some?
It's basically Social Security for everyone.
Oh, Social Security?
Yeah, it's basically a universal basic income. It's like Social Security for everyone.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Like I'm sorry that I'm so naive.
No, I did know what that meant also.
Yeah.
I think Jenny had mentioned that about a month ago when we were talking about the stimulus checks, and she was mentioning how Hawaii, they have some form of that for their citizens, and Alaska also has that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I feel like, so we live in a country, right, where we espouse our social safety net, and that, we don't leave. So I guess the proposition is we don't leave anybody behind, but I don't know if that's reality, right? And I think we've really seen, so there's been a light shown on those inequities that are within our system. So systemic inequities that I think are a byproduct of real selfish, maybe selfish governance over decades. And that has happened here with the coronavirus pandemic, that we have, and rightfully so, passed stay-at-home orders to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, but at the same time haven't provided that social safety net. And so from the standpoint of government, I feel like that's government's job, right? Is to make sure that no one is left behind. That includes income, that includes employment, that includes healthcare. And so I'm on board, from what I understand at this point, UBI to be, count me in. And at the same time too, I think we can all appreciate and understand the value of healthcare, particularly universal healthcare. I had a great conversation with Tara Long about this a couple of days ago when we were discussing the issue at the airport, and how if we had universal healthcare, Medicare for all, this wouldn't even be an issue, right?
Exactly.
But unfortunately we don't, right? And at this point in time, we don't have the decision makers and the positions to make the right decisions to provide that. But in an instance where we do have the opportunity to require it, and I'll be clear about this too, this company could take or leave it, right? But at the same time, they're not entitled to what we're offering. And so at the very least, they can meet us halfway, right? And do the right thing, provide that healthcare insurance for their employees. And I do think it's incumbent upon us to ask for that. I will be proposing an amendment to a recommendation that we'll be voting on Monday night, that will do just that. Ask that this company provide healthcare insurance for those employees, and at the same time include an option whereby the sub-concessionaires, the subcontractors of that company, can get the types of relief that company would otherwise receive if it decides not to provide that healthcare insurance.
So Councilperson Newton, what can we do to support what you're saying? I mean, I heard what you've said, and I've also read an article, I think it was in one of the local newspapers, about this situation. And it does seem unfair that this company, this multinational company, is asking for assistance in kind of a way, but they're not willing to assist their own employees.
In us.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, these are citizens of the city of Charlotte. These are our neighbors,
Yes.
you know, and we, so I think in real critical times, it becomes much more magnified, much more evident that we have to have one another's backs. But even in those times of, even in the good times, right? I mean, I think that's really the measure of our characters. When things are going good, we need to have each other's backs. But undoubtedly, when things aren't going well, right?
Sure.
Public health crisis. One of these employees, and I'm sorry to harp on this, but one of these employees just tested positive for COVID-19 this past week. They are, so at the airport, these are frontliners as well. You know, and these are folks that aren't exposed to our general population, to the protective measures that have been taken within the city of Charlotte. They're exposed to people coming in from out of town, right? We don't know what kind of measures these people have taken elsewhere, and so I kind of feel like as a community, we do, particularly in times like these, need to look out for one another and ensure that, ensure that large companies that have the ability to do this, do it. And it's a shame because of the size, the leverage, and power of this company. They're playing both sides. Both sides of the aisle here, right? So they want us to give them concessions. They want us to give them breaks, but yet they're unwilling to do it for their own employees, and they're unwilling to do it for the subcontractors underneath them. And I just, I've been calling out the hypocrisy of that, and it's my hope that that we can actually stand firm. And yes, maybe within the scope of what we normally do, it's called we're calling it playing hardball. But you got to play hardball when it comes to the health, safety, the lives, right, of people in our community. Right? I mean, these are folks that they live elsewhere, right? I mean, the CEO and the vice president of this company, they're not Charlotteans, and it's my job to make sure that we protect us, we protect our people.
Matt, a question for you. The category of employees, so these are the people that are working in the restaurant and the retail shops that work inside the airport. Is that the type of jobs? Because I know, like, the airline, these aren't airline employees. These are more like legit airport.
Yeah, good question, Jenny. These are the folks that some of them do some of the cargo types of activities, but predominantly we're talking about the folks that work the concession stands. It's food and beverage. Now that's HMS host. We're also looking at providing concessions to Perez, and Perez is the company that runs the retail shops. But there's no issue with them taking care of their employees like there is with HMS host. And in literally, so upwards of about 80% of their employees are currently furloughed, not receiving a full income right now. And they're talking about kicking about 3/4 of those people off their health insurance. Private health insurance is going to cost them 3 times as much. And bear in mind that in the city of Charlotte, our airport employees are some of the lowest, if not the lowest, paid in the entire country. So they are the most vulnerable.
And my understanding is, I think Charlotte Airport is probably the second biggest hub for American Airlines. And I do know that it's the most profitable hub for American Airlines. And one of those reasons is because, well, many reasons, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll put that in perspective too. And I know you got to go, Christian. I always make the show run long. Sorry about that. But I'll put that in perspective too. We have one of the healthiest, broadest, stoutest operational feasibility and sustainability in the entire country. We have a reserve fund at our airport of between 500 and 600 million dollars. That exceeds the average by like $150 million.
Wow.
And not to put this all on the airport, right? It's not on the airport to provide the sustainability or the sustenance to a company that can do it in its own right. But the point is that we do have healthy institutions at play here that can do more. And this company, you know, that says that I guess the 5 to 6 million that, you know, they're asking for from us is going to somehow, you know, if they don't get that right, they're going to go under. I think is a bit it's what we would call crocodile tears. And then to not, so we're looking at a ballpark figure of about maybe 1.5 million to provide that health insurance. I just feel like they can do it if they want to do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, I want to once again I thank you for what you're doing for protecting the citizens of and the interests of Charlotte and our airport, and thank you for your voice and your leadership. And I do anybody who's watching this will be watching this later. Please contact your city council person to share your concern. Matt Newton, Councilperson Matt Newton's on social media, but also he'll need our support on that vote on Monday night, I believe is what you said. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Listen, we're running late, and I'm so sorry that I'm having, this is our last Saturday show, which is probably a good thing, because Saturday mornings, I don't know what it is, internet is just wanky here, and we've got 2 internets just in case for this show. And we have dropped Maurice and Shamaiye, and I want to thank them for joining us in the conversation we had about the situation that's occurring here in America. And also I want to thank everyone who's going to be watching us later as well. But one of the things I think is really important is I will say that Councilperson Newton has a Atlanta Braves cap on, and I am not sure.
You don't want to see what's underneath.
Well, no. I'm just not sure how to feel about the fact that you're an Atlanta Braves fan. I know there's a lot of Atlanta Braves fans here because all we have is the Knights. But as a Texas Ranger fan, you know, I like the Braves, I guess, and they've got a great
American League.
Texas
Ranger American League. We can meet in the World Series.
That's right. So listen, we've got to close out here, but maybe in about 30 seconds, any word about the RNC 2020?
So no update as of now. But I do think, right now there are folks, but you know, above my pay grade, discussing the logistics and its feasibility. Of course, I think it's too risky. I always thought it was too risky, but now more than ever. And I hate thinking that we could be the epicenter for the second wave here in the city of Charlotte. And I think that you know, if we were to allow it to happen, that would be a disgrace and a stain on our reputation as a city.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, we've had a wonderful show, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. And once again, thank you, Maurice Falls, who joined us. And unfortunately, we lost him with my internet service. And thank you, Shamaiye, who was doing 2 calls at once. So thank you for her joining us. And please, everyone, get involved in issues that are important to you. I know sometimes it feels overwhelming. It feels like, you know, as Shamaiye said, just showing up to support causes that are important to you, or to support groups that you feel you want to support. And as she said, even if it's just 1 or 2 people, the next time it can be 3 or 4. And I know that Nelson Mandela, I believe, and I'm going to mutilate what he said, but he said that it may be 1 person, it may be 2 persons, and it may be 3 persons, but you get 5 people, that's a very powerful, and he used his fist. And so, you know, let's keep trying to help each other and loving our neighbors and supporting each other. I do hope that Councilperson Braxton Winston is doing well. I understand that he was part of the marches last night. I know he knew fight a lot of causes together as well, and as do others. So we're going to go around, and please tell us where you're going to be, and we will have our next show on Wednesday in a typical time with better internet. For some reason, it's better on Wednesdays. And then hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we will be joining once again here at Casa de Cano, or as we call the CDC. So we'll go with Maya, Jenny-Jaymes, Maya, Councilperson Newton. And just to let you know, I didn't mention this earlier, but it says Christian Cano, but it's really Trump Baby Pinata. He has been listening to what we had to say. He's going to take everything that we've said back to his dad in the White House. And it's not going to change much, but he's been here at the shows, watching us and listening, supporting Medicare for All, Cynthia Wallace for Congress, and Moms Demand Action, all of those buttons. He's still got a Bernie Sanders button, by the way, so he's not going to get rid of that button. So Jenny, you want to tell us where you're going to be as we close out here?
Yeah, I have no big plans except for Wednesday night of the National Organization of Women virtual meeting. It's going to be about International Pride. So we'll have a full Pride discussion. It'll be live cast on Facebook. Our Facebook, you go to Charlotte Now, Charlotte chapter, you can see how to get involved. And of course, the Monday night virtual council meeting as well.
Excellent. Maya?
Yeah, so I will continue to do my best in turning out with all these protests, and that's all I know I can do. And yeah, that's all I'll be doing this weekend, and helping create a national mutual aid with Chris Smalls. He's a former Amazon employee, so I'll be continuing to helping him with that, and yeah, just taking everything one breath at a time.
That's President.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Christian. I'll be at the city council meeting on Monday night, which is going to be virtual starting at 5 o'clock. You can jump on the Charmec Facebook page and pick it up there, or you can go to YouTube and it's broadcast there as well. I am sad to hear that this is the last Saturday show.
Yeah, we've actually got to start. I don't know.
Well, I'll say this: I'm sad to hear it, but I'm honored that I was the last guest. So,
yeah.
So thank you for that.
And you were actually on our very first Saturday show with all the panel, because your phone or something kept overheating. I remember.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, that was so embarrassing. I did it today. I got kicked off today too, right?
That's okay.
I'm so technologically inept.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. So in closing, go Braves.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you they haven't lost a game this season.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We will be back on Wednesday. Hopefully Mama Ruth will be feeling better, and we can't wait till Jeff Scott joins us back again. We're going to close out on Facebook, and then if you do have time, those who are left on Zoom, stay so we can do a quick promo. So if everyone will just wave, and thank you so much for joining us on Coffee and Pondusi.